We are very happy to have in studio with us Éric Duhaime, leader of the Provincial Conservative Party. First of all, I should tell you, you're the first guest we've actually physically had in studio now in I don't know how long.
Really?
So welcome.
Well, Thank you so much for the honor.
Post-COVID.
I always prefer being with you guys in studio. I think it makes, well, I'm a radio guy, so I'm not a politician first and foremost, but for me it's so different to have an interview when you're in your studio compared to over the phone.
You're so right.
It's much more interesting. So
welcome. It's good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
So just when people may have forgotten that, yes, you're still around, Éric Duhaime, leader of the Conservatives, we haven't heard a whole lot in the last month or so, and I know I heard you this morning talking about the fact that you had a chance to meet with the Premier, and we're quite excited by the fact that he actually acknowledged you because you don't have a member sitting, of course, in the National Assembly. And then I heard Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois this morning, of course, on the show also. The Premier seems to be making rounds now to meet all the opposition parties. Maybe you look at that and you go, well, that's a good thing. Is it?
Well, it's a good thing if he's listening. I mean, it's great to have a meeting. It's a great opportunity to spread our message, to explain what we have in common, what our differences are. But we'll have to judge by the results. Like, is he truly listening, and what is it going to change truly? I think it's better to have those meetings than not having those meetings. We're always accusing him of being stubborn. At least and that's why he's doing the meetings, actually, because he's perceived as somebody who doesn't listen to others and who's doing his thing on his own way. And he got only 40% of the votes. We have to remind everybody that 60% of Quebecers didn't vote for him. He has a super majority, the worst distortion in Quebec's history in terms of democracy. So I think that's why he's having those meetings right now.
What did you talk about?
Everything. The reason of the meeting was natural resources and electricity mainly, because as you know what happened with Hydro-Quebec last week, he was a bit in trouble. So he said, I'm going to consult the opposition because his minister Fitzgibbon was giving him a hard time. So that was the main issue. We talked about the potential shortage of electricity. For me, it's unacceptable. As Quebecers, we have huge resources in Quebec. It's like running out of sand in the Sahara Desert. I mean, it makes no sense that in Quebec we have a shortage of energy. I think we should, exploit our rivers, have, dams and everything, but also we need some natural gas. Quebec is rich in natural gas. There's a huge crisis right now in Europe with the war in Ukraine. They're transferring centrals who were fed by natural gas right now with carbon. So it's terrible for the environment. Yeah. Quebec could have a positive impact, and it could also benefit economically for our regions.
What about the mini hospitals? How did that conversation go?
Well, before you even answer that, let me play a clip. This is Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois this morning. He was on with Elias Makos, and the question was asked. So referencing this for context, Premier Legault has said there will be two to start, private mini hospitals set up, one here, one in Quebec City. Here's what Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois had to say about that.
One of the main problems right now is that frontline workers are quitting the public sector to go in other sectors of the economy, or they're leaving to work for private agencies lending their services inside the public healthcare system. So adding new mini private hospitals in Quebec will just aggravate that problem. So we will actually worsen the problem, not solve it.
He thinks it's a terrible idea. You think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think the Premier's not going even far enough. So we're at the other side of the spectrum on that issue, obviously. I did talk to the Premier about it yesterday. He reassured me on one thing, because I was scared that it was still another promise and he's not going to fulfill his promise. Because, as you know, I'm a former ADQ. I was an advisor for Mario Dumont in the old days in Quebec City. And when we merged with the CAQ, it was one of the main promises that Legault said. He said, okay, you guys are in favor of private sector. We're going to include that, and there's going to be a pilot project if I'm elected with private hospitals. And after we merged, he never, ever talked about it anymore. Is he going to do the same thing now? He said no. He's put a committee in place. He said that he wants to do it in the near future. He says it's going to go very fast because he doesn't need to adopt a bill, or he could go very quickly. So I hope he's going to fulfill his promises.
But you heard the concern from Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois that by doing this, you're taking people out of an already hurting public healthcare system, moving them into the private system, which will only make the public system even worse.
There's two things we need to say about that. First off, if the public monopoly was working, we would know. We have the worst public monopoly right now, and obviously the system doesn't work. The best systems in the world are in Europe. If you look at what's going on in Germany, if you look at what's going on in Sweden, and actually almost all main European countries have mixed systems, where there's a part of the public sector and a part in the private sector. I visited personally the system in Sweden. I was really impressed with what they're doing out there, and I hope we can do the same in Quebec. I'm saying regarding the fact that the employees are going to leave and there's a shortage. Well, there's a lot of people who are leaving right now because they don't like the conditions. They don't like to work for a dysfunctional system. And if they had an opportunity in the private sector, they would probably stay in the business. But now they're doing other things in lives. Actually, I think it's going to be the opposite. We're going to have more people, more care with a more efficient system.
Okay, so let me ask you what you think that automatically brings up the situation that we're dealing with the Maisonneuve-Rosemont Hospital. How do you think that has been handled by Dubé and then Legault saying, that it needed to be micromanaged?
It's always the same problem. We're always going from one crisis to the other. And I like to remind you that over the last 2 years, we were told that the problem with the healthcare system was the COVID-19 problem. Mm-hmm. But we all know that it was prior to that. What's going on right now, it's things that have been happening for years in Quebec. It's not a matter of money. We're giving $1 billion every single week in Quebec for our healthcare system. We don't have the care that we should have for the price we're paying right now. The system is completely dysfunctional, it's completely centralized, it's politicized. This is not the way to go. The employees go in any hospital, talk to people working out there. And actually, you guys in English, I have to give you one thing. Your system is better than ours on the French side. The way the employees are treated, even the efficiency of the system, it's a bit, I'm not saying it's the best system in the world. I'm just saying that it's even better than on the French side because the employees have a little bit more control over their own agenda and their job and what they're doing.
Well, like the Lakeshore, we spoke to a nurse there today. They don't have obligatory overtime. They're not forced to do overtime.
Yeah, he called it coerced overtime.
Yeah,
I'm not sure that's a whole lot better.
So it's a little better, but not much better. Let's be honest. It's still in
shambles. As I'm listening to you go through this and make these points, I kind of in the back of my mind thinking we're sounding almost like we're in an election campaign all over again, which we're not. We're still 3 years or 4 years away from an election. How much input are you going to have? You don't have a member in the National Assembly. By the way, Natasha's big question is, did you get an office?
You were protesting. You wanted your office.
I want an
National
office.
Assembly.
I've asked him again yesterday. He said that his caucus is against it. But I'm sorry, but it shouldn't be the CAC caucus that decides what the opposition gets. I think he has to be a statesman, and that's the problem with François Legault. He's a good leader of the CAC. He's a good leader of his party, obviously, and we see his political successes. But when it's time to elevate himself, unfortunately, he's not a statesman. And that's something that bothers me. He's, democracy is above everything. We got 13% of the votes. It's the highest score ever in Quebec history for a party that has no seats. Those people have a right at least to get inside the National Assembly. I convinced one woman last year to join the party, Claire Sanson, the MNA for Iberville, and I had all the privileges. Now we have 530,000 people who voted for us. We finished second in many constituencies in the west end of Montreal, and we still can't even get inside the National Assembly. They deactivated my card to get in. I can't have an office to meet the groups that are meeting the leaders of other political parties.
But many people listening are like, well, woe is me, you didn't win, and you haven't been able to convince someone.
And that's the system we're in, and it's too bad, but that's the reality.
There's two answers to that. First off, look at what happened in New Brunswick when the same situation occurred under Frank McKenna. That's like 30 years ago. He gave budget to those parties with offices, and he even gave them the right to ask questions from the balcony for the visitors. The other thing is, we use our system and the rules were done when there was 2 political parties in Quebec.
Understood.
There is 5 right now.
No, you're 100% right. We've discussed this back and forth a few different times. But the question then becomes, so what are you going to do? You don't have an office. You're not going to have a chance to stand up and ask a question. What's Éric Duhaime going to do?
I'm going to do what I did for 2 years when I got elected leader of the Conservative Party. I've been touring Quebec. That's what I'm doing again and again and again. I'm going to Quebec City tomorrow. In 2 days, I'll be in Drummondville. We have to be on the ground, meeting our members, selling memberships. pumping the troops, recruiting new candidates, doing the work, the grassroots work, and that's what I'm going to do. And
Sounds
yes,
exhausting.
it is. But I've visited already 40 constituencies since the election. I intend to do all the constituencies within the next few months. I'm going in Gaspé next week. Yes,
you're not going away.
No, the National Assembly is a bubble. And yes, there's a lot of things going on, and people who follow politics and who love politics follow those news. But people who are in the regions and who are far away from politics, when you're in their region talking about their local issues, you sometimes get much more attention and support than when you're in the National Assembly.
We're going to run out of time. I did want to ask you one last thing. We were talking earlier today about Pierre Poilievre and his charm offensive in Quebec for the entire week. A few names came up. He denied he had talked to them. Éric Girard was one of them. Did you have any discussions with Pierre Poilievre?
I met Pierre Poilievre just before Christmas. Pierre is a good friend of ours. You have to know that we've known each other for over 20 years. When I ran for the ADQ, he was a staffer for at the time, the Canadian Alliance in Ottawa, and he took a month off to come and support me. I'm a member of the Conservative Party federally. I will vote Conservative, but as Conservative leader at the provincial level, I shouldn't tell people how to vote. But personally, that's where I stand. And but my intention is to keep staying as Conservative leader provincially. I think it's important. I think we're having a good impact. Elsewhere in English Canada, there's always a link between the provincial Conservatives and the federal Conservatives. Here in Quebec, it's one of the reasons why the Conservatives have not been very successful. They've never had a true trustful partner for 80-something years in Quebec City. And I think that if we want the Conservatives to succeed at the federal level, we need to start first at the provincial, because we're the only province in Canada where people identify themselves more with their provincial government than with their federal government. Everywhere else in Canada, it's the opposite. And I think it's important, if we want to have, strong Conservative presence in Quebec, to start at the provincial level and help the federal afterwards.
We want to thank you for coming in and appreciate your time today as well.
Thank you very much for welcoming me.
Yeah, if we can help you find an office in Quebec City somewhere that you can rent.
I like it here. I think I'm going to stay.
Sure. You can't sleep over, but you can stay as long as you want.
Thank you very much.
I admire your perseverance.
Éric Duhaime, leader of the Provincial Conservative Party.